we're going to continue with sequences, and we're going to talk about common sequence operations. So there are some operation that you can apply to the sequences. Is common between all three of them. So if you have a string, list, or tuple, you can apply these operations on all three types of those values. So let's try to create three different sequences of three different types that we have. So similar to the previous example, again, it is up to you what values you want to keep in them. And you can go ahead and have values depending on like how many values you want to have, what you want to have in it, and so on and so forth. So I'm going to start with creating a sequence that is type a string, and I'm going to have a bunch of numbers in it. Okay, so here are some numbers. And then in my sequence 2, I'm going to basically create a list of all of these numbers. So I'm going to copy that and put a comma between them to create my list. And then I'm going to copy this one, and I'm going to make this one sequence 3 and change the brackets to parentheses. So now I have three data types that are type sequences. I have a string, I have a list, and I have a tuple. They're all holding the same values. Again, your values could be different, and that is totally fine. You can have different data types in the sequences that you have, like having a float type, having a string type, list, tuples, and so on and so forth. But to keep it simple, I'm just working some numbers and putting some numbers inside my sequences. All right, so we're going to start with something that is very simple that we have done before. So let's say, actually, I'm going to practice that in the shell, and then we are going to go back to our program. So let's open our shell, and I'm going to make it slightly smaller. Okay, so I have the sequence that has bunch of numbers. Let's say I want to have the sequence 1, and I want to add something else to it. All right, I want to add hello and then those numbers. So we are going to get all of those numbers, and then string hello is going to be glued to it. So you're using string concatenation to put those two strings to each other, okay? Creating one bigger or one big string out of the two that you have, right? The concatenation, as we said, this plus sign can be applied to other data types. So if I have a list of numbers or list of values or list of elements, I can say add it to another list. So it is going to create and put those two lists together and create one bigger list for us. And it is also true for having a tuple. So I have this tuple, and I'm going to add another tuple to it. Right? So if you do that, it's going to create a new tuple that has all of those 5 elements in it. So it's going to add those two to each other. So this is basically putting two things that are the same data type to each other. You cannot do cross data types. So I cannot say, okay, I have this tuple and I want to add this list to it. It's going to give you an error message because it can only concatenate data types that are same or similar. So you have numeric data types. For instance, float and integer can be added to each other, but you cannot go and try to add a tuple to a list. There are ways that you can do it, but that all goes back to typecasting. So if I truly want to add these two to each other, and at the end I want to have a tuple, I can say, okay, convert this one, this list, to a tuple first, and then add it to my tuple. So I'm using this function tuple now to be able to convert it to a tuple temporarily to be able to add it to another tuple. So if I do that, it's going to change that list 1, 4 there, just have it as a tuple, and then add it to another tuple. Same thing if I have this one. Let's say I have a list. I want to have a list plus a tuple. Or actually, let's just keep it as it was and say this is a list and I want to add them to each other. It won't allow you to do that. Again, same exact problem. There are two different data types. It won't like it. But you can simply say, okay, if I want the result to be a list, I can convert this one to a list. So you see I have my parentheses and I have my item inside it. So the item is a tuple that is inside the parentheses for my function. So if I do that, it's going to convert that to a list first and add it to the other list that you have. Okay, so you're doing type conversion. You're going from one to the other to be able to do that operation that you were looking for, which in this case is addition. You are adding two different things to each other to create something that is a combination of the two. Same thing goes with, if you remember, we had if you wanted to repeat this hello word, hello space, 5 different times, you could do that. You just multiply it by 5, and that is exactly the same as saying hello plus hello plus hello plus hello plus hello. So you're adding hello 5 times to each other. So that is another version of concatenation. You're just expanding that multiplication with addition. So it's exactly the same as saying this and adding it 5 times to itself, right? So instead of doing that, we are going to use multiply sign to do it for us, right? This is same as doing this, right? So you can simply do that for strings. You can do it for lists as well. You can do it for tuples as well. So I have this list, and I say, okay, multiply this one by 4 is going to create a bigger list, which has those items repeated 4 times. And then same thing for a tuple. So if you have this tuple or any other tuple and multiply it by any value, is going to kind of reproduce that for you as many times as you want it. Okay, so these are some simple operations that we have, which are very similar. They're like kind of the same things. The other thing that we talked about last time was how to access an information inside a tuple, inside a list, or inside a string. So if you have a sequence, and that sequence has a bunch of values, I think we created some sequences here. So let's say we have the sequence. Going back here, so I have the sequence, it has some values in it, and I want to access a specific item in it. Remember, to access items, you need to know the name of that sequence and exactly what index number you want. So let's say I want 8. So this is index number 0, and 8 is going to have index number 1. So if I say sequence 1, square bracket, index number 1 is going to give me 8. If you have another type of sequence, which in this case is a list, and if I want to access the same index number, index sequence 2, which is the name of my sequence, I want index number 1, it should give me 8. And then same thing with the last sequence, which is type tuple. If you want to access something from that sequence, you simply say, put the name of that sequence, the index number that you want, and it's going to give you the value. Okay, so that is how you can access information. When accessing the information, another very nice thing that goes into it, so instead of accessing one item at a time, you can access multiple items as well. So let's say I want to access this part as a whole. I want to take 8, 7, and 6 all together and take that a slice out from it, get a copy of that slice. So the way to do that is called the slicing, basically. So it's the same concept. You're accessing something from a sequence. So you need the name of that sequence, you need the square bracket, but what you put here is going to be slightly different. So let's say I want 8, 7, and 6. 8, 7, and 6 in all 3 of them, because we have the same value, is going to hold same index numbers. So let's figure out what index numbers they are going to have. So basically what goes in here is you need to know the start index number, what is the value for that start, and then what is the value for end plus 1. Okay, so what is the start and index number? So in this case, if you want to start from 8 is index number 0, this is index number 1. So our start index number is going to be 1. And then we need to put the end plus 1. So if you want to go all the way to 6, let's figure out the index number for that. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3. So that is 3 that we have for that end. 3 plus 1 is 4. I'm going to leave it 3 plus 1 because Python can do the calculation for me. So if you do that, it's going to give you 8, 7, and 6, which are the values that we have in that slice. So the important thing is like having this colon, the start value, and then end plus 1. So you can replace it with 4 as well if you want to. So I can say, instead of 3 plus 1, I can say 4, and it's going to do the exact same thing, or just leave it with 3 plus 1. Okay, so you can do it for other sequences. So if I do sequence 2, it's going to give me those values. You can do it for the next sequence, and it's going to give you the same stuff. And as you see, the type is dependent on the type of the variable that you have. In sequence 1, the type is a string, so you have a string type, which is the slice that you get. With sequence 2, you have a list, so the slice is going to be type list. And then with sequence 3, you have a slice that is type tuple because sequence 3 is type tuple. Another very cool thing that goes with the slicing is you can also define what a step you want to take. Let's say you want to pick 9, 7, 2, and 4. So you're jumping, you're taking every other item from your sequence, starting from the beginning. So you're starting from here and then jumping, skipping one value, taking this one, skipping this one, taking this one, skipping this, and taking this value. And that is doable. You can do it with the slicing as well. So let's see how that is done. So first of all, we need to figure out our start and end value. So let's do that. So our start is index number 0. That's simple. So we do index number 0. And now we need to figure out index number end. So 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that is 6. We are going to put 6 here. So it's going to be index number 0 all the way to index number 6. And since it is the end, it's going to be 6 plus 1. And then if you want to jump 2, you're going to add the step here. So start, end, a step. So for my step, I want to take a step of 2 instead of a step of 1. By default, it's going to have that 1 as a default value. So if you don't put this one, similar to the previous practices we did, the default value was 1. So you took 7, 8, 7, and 6, one after another. Here, if you change the default value, it's going to follow your instruction. So now it's going to be 9, 7, 2, and 4. So it's skipping the items that are after each value that you have, okay? So you can change your step to whatever value you want depending on what are the things that you want to access from your sequence. The other nice thing about this one is you can do, right now we are doing forward indexing. So if you are going to go from the start all the way to the end, you can switch that and you can go backward if you want to. So for instance, let's try doing this and see what happens. Let's do -1 and see if we get anything. And I'm going to explain what happens. So if we do that, it's going to give us an empty string. The reason behind that, let me put sequence 1 here. You're saying start from this first item, start from 9, go all the way to end, but go backward. So if you go backward from here, there's nothing. There's nothing in there. So if you go backward, you get 0 item, you get nothing, which is this empty one. So if you want to go backward, you need to start from here, from the end value, and then make your way to the beginning of that. Okay, so we are going to kind of flip the start and end value because now your start value is the end index number, and your end value when you want to stop is your start value. So I'm going to change that. So we need to figure out the index number for where you start and when you end plus 1, okay? So I'm going to talk about this plus 1 in a second, but let's see what happens if we do this one. So index number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So a start is index number 6. And we're going to keep that as 6. And then we need to figure out the end value. So this is the end. We are going to stop here, which has the index number 0. So regarding this plus 1, I put that plus 1 because we started with the default value of 1. So if we do this one, I'm going to run this one to see what we get. And I'm going to talk about the problem that we have because not all of the values are going to be there. So we have 4, 1, 2, 6, and 7. And we are not going to get 8 and 9. Let's think about what the reason is. What we are saying here in this line to do is start from here, which is index number 6, and then go 1 down, go 1 down. And then as it goes down, it's going to check the index number. It's going to stop at index number 1. So index number 1 is 8. So it's going to come all the way and stop right here because we said stop there. And it's going to stop right there when we demand it. So with this plus 1, this is not always plus 1. This is basically 1 beyond, all right? If you're going in a positive direction, then 1 beyond is plus 1. If you're going in a negative direction, 1 beyond is 1 less. So here in this case, we need to do minus 1 because we are going backward. We are going in a negative direction. So if you're going this way and you're going from some numbers like 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 0, 1 beyond 0 in that direction is negative 1. So you need to get into that negative 1 to be able to cover all of those numbers. So it is a 1 beyond basically. And you can always look at your step. Depending on the direction of your step, you can determine if that sign needs to be positive or negative for your end value. All right, so let's try this one now. And what did I do wrong? So we have this step of 6, and we are going to go to negative 1. With the step of, let's just try 0 first and then see what we get. So we get 4, 1, 2, 6, 7, and 8, which is way closer. So now we included 8 because we are now moving backward. Now if we convert that to negative 1, that should give us 9 as well, which I'm not sure why it's not giving us 9. Okay, there's another thing that we can try. Let's try to leave it empty. Okay, so with this concept of empty, whenever you want to reach the end of something, when it comes to slicing, you can leave it empty. So if you're starting from, so if I have sequence 1, and I'm starting from the beginning and I want to go all the way to index number 4, I can leave the start value empty, and it's going to go through and start from the beginning, go all the way to index number, this is 0, 1, 2, and 3, okay? So by default, it's going to do that. Or if you want to go all the way to the end, like let's say you want to go from index number 4 all the way to the end, you can leave the end empty and it knows that. So you start from sequence, let's print sequence 1 more time. So this is index number 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it starts from 2 all the way to the end, which is 2, 1, 4 that you're getting here. So you can leave that. So for some reason, sequence, the slicing want to recognize negative value for end, so which is new in this version. So for that reason, we just leave it empty, which which basically tells it go all the way to the end value, and it's going to cover the first value that you have And it basically creates a reverse of your sequence. So this is the actual sequence, this is the reverse of that. And that is like one of the simplest way that you can use to do it.